Welcome to Grow Good, a place to spread joy, beauty, and goodness, to bear good fruit, a place where others can meet or be inspired to meet God. So get cozy, lean in, and listen close. Miracles are at work, and He wants to meet you too. Hi, all, and happy Tuesday. I hope you're off to a great week. I love that I continue to say this every episode. Is it getting old? Yeah, I do hope you're genuinely having a good week. And I'm so excited to today get to bring you a conversation with Ashley of His Promise podcast. It's actually a brand new podcast that launched the day that we recorded this episode, and we're recording this back in July. So definitely we'll have to go check out His Promise podcast. Ashley's story is amazing, as all of these stories are. But she really had quite the journey. And I love how she explained the layers and the different chapters of her journey, how she's struggled at different times to go deeper with the Lord in her life and to give Him more of a yes, and to surrender more at different times in her life. And I think that's just so relatable and comforting in a lot of ways, just to hear her journey and to walk kind of alongside her as she told it to me. I just found it really comforting, the way she described how she approaches her relationship with God in her daily life. She also talks a little bit about just, some of the darkness that she has experienced at times in her life. And I just wanted to give a heads up for anybody that may be struggling or maybe knows somebody who is struggling, just to please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which is 1-800-273-8255. Help is available, and you can speak with someone today. And I also just wanted to give a heads up for anyone listening, any children who may be around. She doesn't go into that much detail, especially in this one, but she does share a little bit of that. And so I just wanted to give a heads up. And it's just amazing to see where she is now and where the Lord is taking her next. That's what I think is the most exciting part about it. And so, I can't wait to bring you this story of healing, redemption, and mission today. So without any other delay, here is Ashley. Ashley, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So happy you're here. Could you start us out by just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you and where you're at right now?
Yeah. So my name is Ashley, and I am living in Georgia right now. I live in Georgia. I grew up in Georgia. This is where I grew up. I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I moved to Georgia when I was 3. So Georgia has been my hometown. It's been the place that I grew up in. I come from a family of 3. I'm the oldest of 3, so I have a younger brother and a younger sister who aren't so young anymore. My sister's 19 and my brother is 18, but to me, they're like my little baby brother and sister. I'm 22 years old, and right now I am just working as the director of youth ministry at my parish, and I'm going to school for theology and communications. And it's just, I'm a cradle Catholic as well. My mom is Catholic, but my dad isn't. So it's such a gift that my mom was bold enough to be able to say, I want to raise my kids as Catholic, right? And I want to allow them to come to the church. And I'm also very appreciative of my dad's yes, because he could have said no, right? But it is kind of hard to not be in the same page with my father right now. But growing up, he was very respectful of it. So I'm very thankful for both my parents in that way of being able to lead me in the Catholic Church. And even though my dad isn't Catholic, I feel like in a way he has also led me just by his yes. So I'm very thankful for that. So I'm a cradle Catholic, and my heart is just for ministry, honestly. I always say that I don't know what I'm doing with my life. because honestly, like this wild adventure with Jesus, I don't know what's next for me. And so like right now I'm a youth minister, but like if the Lord calls me to go be like a religious ed teacher somewhere in like 5 months, then I'm gonna go do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's everything. I never have like a set plan ever because it just never goes my way anyway. So I just kind of surrendered that. But yeah, like that's all I do all day, every day. It's just ministry and mass and all of that. So yeah, but it did take me a while to get
Awesome.
here. But that's just
Yes.
where I'm at.
Yes. I definitely
Yeah.
want to hear. And you're only 22. So that's amazing
Yeah.
that all that has already happened.
I
Like,
know. Oh my
but it's
goodness.
awesome. I mean, praise God for your yes and for the ministry you're doing. Do you go to school online then?
Yes, I do go to
Okay.
school online. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, so let's go back to the beginning. I mean, you touched on it a little bit that your parents, your mom was really the one, raising you in the faith. But
Hmm.
could you just give a little bit of background, yeah, how you grew up, and if there was a moment that you can remember
Hmm.
first encountering God, or
Yeah.
when you kind of realized that He was there?
Yeah. So I, again, because both my parents, they're different, denominations. I did not grow in a family where like I have some of the best Catholic girlfriends who are like, yeah, I grew up with my family praying a rosary every night, or we went to daily mass as a family, or we went to adoration for like together to confession together. I didn't grow up like that. My mom was we go to mass because we know that we have to, and that's it. Right. Like I didn't grow up watching her go to confession. I didn't grow up watching her, just live out her faith in that way. I think her intentions have always been good and they continue to be good, right? But she was very much so just the kind of Catholic that would only go to mass on Sundays and would serve the community here and there. But it wasn't this thing where it was like, this is why I'm so big on like catechism starts at home. It doesn't start within ministries.
Mm,
Um, because yeah, like maybe if my mom had done that foundation, I would have met the Lord earlier. But anyway, like I'm here, so it's fine. But yeah, so my dad, what's interesting is that my dad would always go to our sacraments. So he was there when we were all three of us were baptized, and he
mm,
would go to our first communion, and he went to our confirmation. And I think it really was just the fact that he knew it was important and he knew that it was special. Like he knew that the three of us would be excited for it, like for the first communion or for the
right.
confirmation. So he was just being a father and doing his obligation to like attend and be present, right?
Yeah.
But I am very thankful that my dad, growing up, he never questioned our faith. He was never like,
Mm,
well, why do you worship Mary? Or like, well, like the typical Catholic questions that we get.
yeah.
My dad never did that of us growing up. He never wanted to confuse us. He never just said anything. It wasn't until we were much older, honestly, within the past 2 years, where my dad started to challenge the three of us. But
Mm,
even then, like he's very respectful and he's very steady in the way that he asks. Is never in an attacking way, but it is more challenging now because it's like he asks me like, "Well, why do you guys do this? Why do you guys do that?" And it's kind of hard that me as his daughter, like I'm the one that has to catechize him
right.
instead of like him being the one that has had to lead me.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, so that's kind of how I grew up. Mass was always very important. And I went to Sunday school ever since I was in third grade, all the way to confirmation. My mom did not play when it came to Sunday school
Yeah.
or VBS or retreats or going to Life Teen on Sundays. My mom didn't mess around with that kind of stuff. Like she made the three of us go, even though she didn't go herself, which I
Right.
think that's such a God thing. Like my parents were used so profoundly by the Lord.
Mm,
And it took me a while to realize that because I did at some point resent that they didn't live out that life. But it's like, no, like Jesus still met me through my parents in that way. And the simplicity of
totally.
my
Yeah.
dad saying yes and not being condescending or rude. And just in the fact that my mom wanted the best for us constantly. So um, the first encounter I had with Christ was when I was 16. So I grew up again, like just going through these motions, right? Because suddenly, because my mom kind of forced it on us, it did feel like it was because I have to go. It wasn't this because I love Christ, because I desire this like authentic love with him. It was because I knew it was the right thing to do and I wasn't going to argue with my mom and I wanted to make her happy.
Mm,
So I just like, it became something so like about the motions, about the motions. And it wasn't until I was 16, I had already been confirmed. And after confirmation, it's known that teenagers leave the church or they stop going and attending, right? But again, as long as I was under my mom's roof, that was not a thing for her. She made me go into ministry. So I started with music ministry. And so again, like I'm going through the motions of retreat, going through the motions of now singing at masses and now singing and doing things. But again, like my heart wasn't fully for the Lord. It was just because it was something that I had to do.
Yeah.
So it was one day in adoration, which I had attended so many adorations. But again, like at the moment, I didn't know what the Eucharist was either, even though I was so present at Mass, or present, like not actually present, but just physically
Yeah.
present. It wasn't until I was 16, I was in a Eucharistic adoration, and I was a very broken girl at the time. My dad, he's a great dad, but he was not very present in my life. He's a workaholic. He's always worked 2 full-time jobs just to be able to provide for us. And he's the kind of dad that's like, oh, like the iPhone 10 is out. My daughters need that. My daughters have to walk around with the best purses and the best cars, and we have to have a big house. Like that's how he's always shown love. But my heart desired a father who was intentional and who was very present in every way, not just financially. So I was a very broken girl, and the only father figure I had in my life was my uncle. And my uncle passed away in a tragic accident when I was 15. And so suddenly I'm stripped away by the only father figure in my life. And he lived with us. He was very involved. Like he was the one that went to the games. He was the one that called for birthdays. He was everything that I desired. He was literally my father, literally. So, and he was very young. He was 26 when he passed away, and it was very sudden. It was a car accident. It was so sudden. So here I am in this brokenness of not having a father, or just feeling like very empty by it. So I ran 2 boys. So during this time, I'm dating this guy who I dated for about a year and a half, and it was very toxic, very manipulating, I messed up with him a lot in every way, emotionally, sexually, in every way, I messed up with him. So it hit a point where I was fearful to leave because I was fearful of what would happen after that. And I also felt a sense of unworthiness because of what I had done with him. Like, how could anyone love me after this kind of thing? So I'm at adoration, and the priest at the time, father, he comes up to me out of the crowd with the monstrance and puts it to my face, like face to face with Jesus, and says to me, Ashley, the Lord loves and desires you in every way. Accept him. And I just fall to my knees, and I'm like, God, if you're real, get me out of this relationship because I alone can't do it. And so 2 months went by, and sure enough, like I got out. He made it so I could leave the relationship, or like just so like it was no way that I could ever stay. And so after that, I entered a season of like, okay, God, you're real, and you're not just the kind of God that's like, I'm going to go because I have to go. You're like, you desire me, and you prove that to me through adoration. And so my 16-year-old little heart started to go through a season of healing and just restoring and finding my true identity in him. And after this, I really started to have a relationship with Christ in the best way that I could, because again, looking back, I was never taught how to. So I did make a lot of mistakes. So yeah, then I had another encounter, a huge encounter like that with him last year, which is how I got into ministry. But during that time, like when I was 16, it was just a time of healing, a time of saying, yeah, I messed up, but there's redemption. And I know that God forgives me, but I also have to believe that for my own, right? And I also have to forgive myself. So I started to desire a relationship with Christ, and that's kind of where it started. But my actual ministry, my desire for ministry didn't start till I was 21. But that's my first encounter with Jesus at 16.
Wow. That is so crazy. And it's so nuts how that happens right when, you were in that place where you needed it. And that priest, obviously, the Holy Spirit, I mean, he was prompted and he responded. And I just love that. I love thinking about that because you can be that for somebody else.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's just like so powerful that he had no idea what you were going through. And yet he had that prompt and he felt the nudge and he did it. And it just broke open this whole new relationship between you and Christ. And you really let him in because of that. And that's just so profound. Oh, I got goosebumps when you were talking about it. That's incredible. I mean, how could you not leave that? Like, were you like sobbing? Because I would be
I was sobbing, but I was sobbing even harder after the relationship ended on my way home.
And you realized
I was like, God, these were my exact words. I said, God, and I didn't at the moment, I don't think I meant it, but it was like what my initial reaction was. I said, God, I promise you that I will from now on out serve you forever. And that was way before the decision I've made to start into ministry. This was when I was younger. Little did I know that prayer would actually come to life.
Exactly. And it's like, I think he totally uses that. Like, even though he knows our level of commitment when we're saying it, I think he knows that like your desire is there to do that. And he's like, okay, you might not be ready for that just yet, but I'm going to like prepare you for that because now you have that desire and it's there, which is so beautiful. But so then at that point, did you start going to, or you were already going to mass because you were living with your mom. And so did things start to come more alive, like in the mass or in confession, or did you start going to the sacraments and things like that? Okay.
No,
so what happened?
Okay. So it was just like the awareness that I can have a relationship with him. Right. The awareness of like who God says he is. And I think that in this state of like this season of my life, like I only needed that because I would have been overwhelmed had I known like what actually mass was and like what actually the sacraments are and all of that. So at this point, like I'm realizing like I can have a relationship with Christ no matter what I have done, as long as my heart is like so repetitive. No, how do you say it? Like as long as I truly repents it, right?
Right.
And I can have this relationship with him, and he sees me as one identity, not multiple identities, right? So I'm walking through this phase of life, and I feel like my intentions behind all of this at the moment were good, even though I look back and this ended up being something that I've had to really die to myself and ask for forgiveness, is that I started to become very more involved in ministry. But it wasn't in a way that was like, I desire ministry because I want to build the kingdom. It was, I want to be in ministry because of the political side of it. Because I want to fight for Jesus, right? Because I want to do the right thing. Because I want people to know that they are in sin. Because I feel like it's my obligation as a Catholic that I have to speak up for the truth, right? Not knowing that ministry is rooted in both truth and love, the way that Jesus is. Jesus was both truth and love. He was not one without the other. He could not be just truth because then he would be too mean. But he could not be just love because he would just be a hippie. He was both truth and love. And mine was only rooted in truth in a very mean way. It was almost like, yes, like I grew in a relationship with Christ, but I wasn't showing it with my person or with my actions. Like I would go to mass and go to church and, I was this one person. But behind closed doors, like who actually was I? I was not that person. I was nasty to people, and I was not living this authentic life as a Catholic. And again, like not to make excuses for myself, but like I feel like it's rooted again in those wounds that I've had previously. And instead of taking a step back and not just joining ministry right away at such a young age, because I was like 17, 18, 19, instead of taking a step back and just really making it about me and Jesus, I made it about me, Jesus, and other people. So during this time, I'm like in high school, I'm a junior, senior year of high school, and then I go off to my freshman year of college, and I go off to my sophomore year of college, and I'm still living this life of kind of like a double life, kind of like, like I'm this person at church, but behind closed doors, like I'm not a kind person. I persecute a lot of people through my words. And like, as ashamed as I am to this day about these things, like I was very much so a very big hypocrite in the Catholic Church when it came to all of this kind of stuff. And so during the season of my senior year of high school, all the way to about a little over a year ago, I was in a very beautiful relationship with this guy. We dated for 4 years, and it was like very, very, very beautiful. I look back and I look at him, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I'm just so thankful that I went through this time with him. And even though it didn't work out, like, after that breakup that I realized who I was, right? And I realized that I wasn't living this authentic life. And I really much so believe that the Lord used him so that I could finally just surrender and be like, Lord, it's not about me. And it's not about this person. It is not about boys. It's not even about my family. Like, it's about you and I. So this shakeup in my life last year is really what put me at the foot of the cross and put me at the feet of Jesus. And I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm done running. I know that my intentions are good. And I know that maybe I do it too roughly and maybe I'm not kind, but I know that there's a goodness inside of me that I just want to give to you. And I don't want to do it without you anymore. Because also, for 2 years prior to that, even up to that, I suffered deeply with anxiety and depression. I was diagnosed with clinical depression and a very bad generalized anxiety. And anyone that knows me, like my closest friends from then, I wouldn't shower for days, and like I gained 40 pounds during that time, and I very much so hated myself, and I was in a very dark place. I was in and out of the hospital all the time, attempting, and I was in a hospital just like hurting myself. And, I know that situation really strained a lot of relationships, like friendships, as well as that relationship, as well as my relationship with my parents. So I was in a very dark place. But it was this time last year where I finally was like, Lord, I'm done. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm truthfully done. I'm exhausted and I'm tired and I don't know what to do next. And I need you to literally physically show me. And after that, he brought in these incredible women in my life. And I was sitting in adoration, just bawling my eyes out. A lot because of the heartbreak, but mostly because of this realization that I had of like, oh my goodness, I have lived a double life this whole time. And I've hurt so many people and I can't forgive myself because it's not actually who I am. I was just so wounded and I don't know what I was thinking. So I'm sitting in adoration and this woman comes up to me and she says to me, she doesn't even know me. She kind of looks at me and she goes, I just felt really called to sit next to you. And I look at her and I was like, I'm crying. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, who are you? Like, I don't even know who you are. And then we leave and she looks at me and she goes, I've seen you around church. You should come to daily mass with me. I was like, okay. So I start going to daily mass with her. And then it's turned into this beautiful, to this day, this mentorship, this older woman who to this day, she is the woman that I really go to about all of these things. And she's the one that's like, confession is important because of this. And like mass is an actual sacrifice on the altar. And the Eucharist is truly Jesus. And like, yeah, I knew that these things are real, but it's like, I didn't know the depths of it. And I didn't know that like, I am literally before the King of Kings in the Eucharist. Like after that, I was like, I'm never missing anything ever again. And I will constantly walk this life of virtue, or at least try to, because of his goodness. So like, I would say like anything good that comes out of me is not even me, it's him, because I alone obviously could not do it.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. And I think that during this time, I went to Mexico to do a retreat. In the midst of heartache, in the midst of this realization, in the midst of brokenness, the Lord called me to do this retreat. And I remember just ministering to people and being like, I'm so unworthy. I caused so much heartache to so many people. I've done so many nasty things. Like I can't forgive myself. And I'm sitting there and this little girl comes up to me. She's 10. And she comes up to me and she holds my face and she says, Ashley, are you sure that God is good? Because I'm struggling. And mind you, like these kids go through poverty. These kids go through like rape and abuse and just like hunger. And she looks at me and I'm face to this little girl, face to face with her. And I look at her with just tears in my eyes and I'm like, yeah, he's good. And so after that, I like run to this little chapel and I just break down. And my brother comes in and he's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, it's just like the Lord continues to pursue me. Like even like that split moment where I was like, I'm so unworthy. You know what? Like, I just want to give up. Like, I'm not worthy of people's love anymore. Like, I really am this person who I used to be, who lived a double life. He met me through this little girl.
Yeah.
And he met me through my mentor and he met me through parishioners. And then like, as I'm healing, as I'm realizing all these things, who is now my spiritual father, he called me and he said, I know a couple of things about you. Would you like to be the director of youth ministry at my parish? Wow. And I was like, oh my goodness, even though I have messed up so badly, like the Lord still, I knew that this desire for ministry for me was actually my vocation.
Mm.
And even though I did it wrong, the Lord allowed me to do it right this time.
So
So
beautiful.
I just, yeah, that's just a little bit. It wasn't until this past year where I'm like, I am so all about, mass and most especially the Eucharist and how special
Yeah.
priests are, and just the richness of our church and our traditions. It's more than a relationship. It's really how Jesus has met us from heaven to earth, just with the Eucharist itself.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, yes. Praise. Like everything you said, I'm just like, yes, because I just love so many things you said. But I love what stuck out to me, it like jumped out to me, was when you said, when you were in that place, that broken place, which I about your story, it's like these places where you're broken is where you're meeting him,
Yeah.
because you finally kind of allow him in, because you're just
Yeah.
like, I can't do
Yeah.
it. And I love how you use the word physically. Like you were like, I need you to physically show me. And I think that just says so much, because that's so, there's so many layers to that, but like that is so profound, because that like is
Yeah.
our faith in so many ways. I love that in Catholicism, it's body and soul. Like we are a
Yeah.
body and we're a soul.
Yeah.
And, Jesus was fully human, fully divine. And like we get to receive him, physically. And so what you're saying with the Eucharist and how powerful it is, and how you were able to, and then the daily mass, like he was calling you through that woman
Yeah.
to receive him physically
Yeah.
daily, which
Yeah.
is just so powerful that he did that, because you literally asked him to and he did it. It's just amazing. It's amazing to see these things and how he works. And I love what you said about the little girl when you're just having these doubts.
Yeah.
He does like have a way of just sending in little reassurances
Yeah.
that will get you back on track, or give you a sign that like you're on the right track that only you would know. And that's what's so sweet about it. It's just like he's there constantly, and he's listening, and he's waiting for any moment that he can just like swoop it and give you like something that you're going to notice and know it's him, because he just so badly wants to love us at that level. And so I think, oh my gosh, I mean, ever since you were 16, and it just continues to deepen and grow. And I can't wait to see where it goes, because I just feel like it's only the beginning. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, this just happened like this past year. Like imagine, and I think about that all the time. Like, Lord, like this is only this past year. Like I don't think I can take more.
Seriously.
I can't take more of your love. I get too overwhelmed. No, yeah. And I think that even in the season that I'm at right now, where I'm struggling is that I dropped out of school last fall. I was a bio major for 3.5 years, and I had one more year to graduate. And I remember just like, again, like it's the season of like this heartache and this realization of being this person and not being able to forgive myself and just having this weight on my shoulders. I'm in the middle of this biochem class, and I'm sitting there and I'm just crying, and I'm like, Lord, I'm tired. Like I'm so exhausted and I don't know what to do anymore. And he tells me, and like, he just spoke to my heart that day, and he's like, beloved, I need you to look up. And I was like, oh, I can't. He goes, look up. And I look up and I see my professor writing on the board. And he says to me, you were never called to do this. You were called to do ministry. And that same day I went to admin and to my advisor, and I said, I drop out. I'm not doing this any longer. And so then I go to my office and I'm like, oh my goodness, what
did I just
do? Oh no, what did I just do? And so I'm sitting in my office and I'm laughing, but it suddenly turns to this adventure with Christ. That's why in the beginning I told you, I don't know what's next for me. I just know that I'm going to be obedient, because in the times that I haven't been, I've suffered, and my peace has been stolen, and anything that isn't peaceful is not from the Lord. So I always say, follow your peace. Where he gives you the most peace, like follow that. And right now is the most peaceful I have ever felt in my life. I took a semester off to focus on my ministry and really discern what's next for me. And I discern religious life. And the Lord showed me in a very painful way that by like confronting a certain situation that I was not called to religious life, that I saw something and I was like, I'm just going to run for it. And I ran life when he was only calling me to ministry. It's like I saw it and I got too excited.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, like what's held me together, what's put me together is the Eucharist. And I will always say that like us as Catholics, we're so gifted and we're so blessed. Like we don't have to have the Eucharist. It's a gift. The Eucharist is a gift that we have, and heaven meets earth on just in that little host. And that's where the source of my healing has come through all of this, and the strength, because right now it's like, what's next? Like, I know I'm supposed to do theology. How am I going to afford it? How am I going to go to the school? Now I'm 2 years behind. And like, if I focus on those things, the anxiety comes in. But if I just keep if I just keep my eyes on the one that has promised, something good will come out of all of this. Like it makes it more tolerable to be able to just walk in that truth. So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at.
Wow, that's crazy, Ashley. Oh my gosh, it's nuts, but it's so inspiring. And I think so much of what you said is so relatable. Just like, I think there's a lot of people that grew up in a similar way, you know, with whether it's two parents in different phase or it's just, you know, where you kind of are going through the motion. So I just love how you explained everything. I think it's just so helpful for people that maybe is in the same boat, you know, and wanting to encounter Christ at a deeper level and get to know him. I thank you for sharing it all. But we kind of touched on this, but do you want to share maybe one of your biggest challenges that you've had in cultivating this relationship and one of your greatest joys?
I think the biggest challenge that I have had in this whole journey is caring too much what people think. My parents are not supportive of my decision to drop out and pursue ministry. Of course, it doesn't make as much money as the way that I would have made as a doctor, right? Because I was going to be a dentist. I don't want to disappoint people, and I don't want people to think that I'm pretending now because of who I was before, right? And then the Lord shows me like, well, beloved, like, look at Saul and Paul, like, you know, like he persecuted so many Christians and then he became this huge Christian, like, because like nothing happened in your life for you to change that radically. The only thing that allows you to change that quick and that fast and that profound is Christ alone, nothing. And and he just reassures to me, like, you are only rooted in me. Of course, do you not think that I'm not going to change you that profoundly and that radically and that like just convert you like in a way that only I can do it? So that's why I get a little convicted. I'm like, okay, Lord, you're right about that.
You're right.
But yeah, for me, it's caring too much what people think about me with my decisions and with just anything in life. Honestly, that's been the biggest challenge for me. But again, like that's just something that I can offer up because again, like if Christ cared about what people thought about him, I don't think that he would have picked up the cross and go, right? So I think about that a lot, that some of the greatest saints, they had to go against the society and what even their families would say. So that's what kind of gives me peace. What gives me the most joy is just being able to encounter all these people throughout the way, and just like the Lord being so faithful in that way. I wasn't looking for these people in my life, you know, and the Lord just beautifully put them there. And that's one of the greatest joys ever, is that I get to be able to witness other people's stories, and I get to be able to witness the goodness of Jesus, like throughout other people, and the way that he can convert hearts quickly within a day. Like I know some people that have been healed so fast from mental illness or from physical illness or from spiritual illness, and only Christ could ever do that, right? So it's such a beautiful thing for me to be in ministry, and it gives me the most joy that I just get to be able to witness so much goodness that God has.
Yeah, you have like a front row seat to it all, which is when you're in ministry, you get to work with the Holy Spirit on that level, which is just so, that's awesome. And I don't know, I mean, you didn't touch on too many, but do you want to share some standout influences that have helped you on your journey, whether it's a book or a podcast or a speaker or a retreat, or even, I mean, I know the Eucharist, a specific sacrament that's really helped you. Are there any others?
Yeah. So, for those who have never heard it, the Marian Consecration book. Yes. Have you guys ever heard of that? Have you ever heard of that?
Yes. I did 33 days to Morning Glory. That was my first one. I did it in May, which was awesome.
I did mine last year in May, and I consecrated myself to our Blessed Mother. And that book, I have never had a relationship with our Blessed Mother, but to be able to have a woman that just is such a role model of what femininity should be and what women should be like, that's beautiful. And I'm so thankful for that book, because that's allowed me to be like, I'm allowed to be a woman, but I'm also called to be holy, and I'm also called to be virtuous. And I can go to Mary for these things, right? So that she can just go on behalf of me to her son. And I think that's so beautiful. So yeah, definitely the Marian consecration. I think that Mama Mary has had a huge role in all of this. And it was really that book that really, really moved my heart. I consecrated myself right before all of this, like the season of sorrows happened for me. So I'm like, Mary was behind all of that. So I am so thankful for that book, and I love that one. And then also I love reading from Dr. Scott Hahn, because I'm kind of a little theologian nerd. So he explains the Eucharist in detail, where you can just defend it towards our like non-denominational brothers and sisters and stuff like that. So for me, I think it's more of wanting to learn the theological studies of everything. But as relationship wise, like I love women communities like Blessed is She, and just like Emily Wilson and all of those great Catholic women, right? So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm looking at right now.
That's awesome. I love how you talked about meeting Mary. I think we just had a guest on, her episode actually aired this week, but I love how she explained it. I think a priest told her this, but it was like almost like you met Jesus and now he's bringing you home to meet his mother. And I just think that's so cute, and just like,
I love Mary.
So true. She's just awesome. And she opens this whole door. I think it was for me too, this whole other layer to your relationship with Jesus, where you get to know, his mother, and she gets to bring you to her son in a way, in such an intimate way that it's just,
I'm telling you, that book changes lives. That book definitely
incredible.
Changed my life. So yeah, that one is a really big source of who I am today, is because of Mama Mary.
Awesome. I love it. And then we didn't even talk about yet your podcast. So tell me, how did that come about? And like, when did that get started, and how was it birthed? Yeah.
I'm still kind of freaking out since I launched it today.
Wait, today?
Yeah, I launched it today.
Wait, no way. I didn't even know that. I saw it I've seen it online. Obviously, it looks amazing. But tell us about it.
Yeah, I launched it today. So for the past couple of months, kind of how me and you were talking about earlier, I have just felt this huge desire to expand in my ministry, right? And I don't know how. I just knew that the Lord really blessed me and has allowed me to be able to retain a lot of knowledge and retain a lot of wisdom just through like the people that I have met, like the priest that I have met and my mentor. And it's like there's so much goodness. There's so much goodness.
It's like it needs somewhere to go. You're like, I can't be the only one like taking this in. Yeah, totally.
So I'm like, there's too much goodness coming into my life. Like I can't, and there's too much knowledge I'm getting from these classes. And it's not even just like the knowledge, but like mostly just like
truth.
The goodness that I listen to my priest and confession and my spiritual director and my spiritual father and my spiritual moms. Like, I'm like, if only I could get this somehow, somewhere. So there are a lot of things that, there's a lot of things that need to be talked about in our faith. Right. And I have, again, like just really surrendered my life to the Lord in every way, even when it comes to vocation and career and everything. So I just want to be used as a vessel, and just put my voice, and obviously like other people, right? Because I love talking to people. I think that's what the Lord is just smiling and uses the both of us like right now to really just have a conversation and listen to each other. Because I know that sometimes we say things and we're like, even in the depths of our heart, while like what she said like really resonated in my heart, or like what he said really resonated in my heart. So I fought it for a long time. And the more I was disobedient, the more I would just get beat up in prayer. And the more I would be anxious, and the more my peace would be stolen. And the more I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. Like, I just know. And he's like, just do it, beloved. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it. But if I get people, but if I have the equipment, but like, you start putting these buts, and then of course he's God, so he provides.
Yeah, he's
nothing.
Like, yeah, exactly. It's like, here, let me make it really easy for you. Yeah.
That's nothing. So I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to throw up. But I was like, okay, fine. I'm just going to do it. So my podcast name is His Promise. And the reason I called it that is because through every season of our life, there's a promise that the Lord has for us. In the sorrows and in the joys, there's always a promise that he has for you. I look at Jesus and how he was joyful. And during those times of joy, his Father, our Father, promised things for him. But he was also suffering. He also endured like sorrows. So even in the depth, like in the midst of that, Jesus stayed steady because of the promises that the promises that God the Father had for him. So that's just kind of like what my podcast is about. It's just listening to stories and just like asking people like, so how has God's promise in that? Like, how do you see God's promise in that? So yeah, it's just a little bit about my podcast. I'm super excited. We just, today's episode is about daughterhood. And that really, really resonated in my heart in a way that I didn't even know that I needed it. I think I kind of expected to be the one to talk the most, but I was like, no, like Jesus kind of convicted me, was like, no, you're the one that needs this episode. But even if the podcast isn't like, maybe it doesn't touch anyone, but like it's constantly pursuing just me all the time. Like, oh my goodness, like, oh, maybe this is all just for me. And that's
yeah, that's how I feel. It's perfect. It works out though. I'm like, hey, I could sit and talk to people about Jesus like all day. So I love it, But so do you have a guest on each episode? Or how does that? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I do.
Talks about the topic. Awesome. That's great. I cannot wait to start listening. Yeah. And congrats on finally.
Thank you. I know.
Yeah, it's going to. I don't know. The Holy Spirit is up to something because there are so many things, I think, launching.
There's so much goodness.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's beautiful to watch. So I can't wait to see what happens with his promise.
Yeah.
Okay, Ashley. So the last question that I hope to ask everyone who comes on at the end is, can you share with us one scripture verse that is either speaking to you recently or that has played a foundational role in your journey, and why?
Yes. So I have to be honest, I'm terrible when it comes to scripture. I know the stories, I know verses, but I can't tell you where it's at. So I'm just going to tell you that my biggest part of the Bible that really resonates in my heart and I constantly think of is the woman at the well.
Yes.
I am the woman at the well.
So good. Yes.
I feel like I am the woman at the well because this whole time that I've been running and I've been sinning and I've been doing all this, like Jesus, sometimes we want to think that Jesus is like, again, like this lovey-dovey kind of person. But with the woman at the well, when he was like, go get your husband, and she said, I don't have one. And he said, you're right, you have 5. Like he pokes at those wounds, but only to make you better, right? So I constantly feel like the woman at the well. When the Lord convicts me in confession through people, I'm like, oh, you're just poking me because you know that I have to hear it in order for me to be fully healed, like and free, right? And the Samaritan woman is also the first person he introduced his ministry to. Yes. So just the fact that he was able to go there, even though Jews were not allowed, and they didn't get along, he met her in the midst of just conflict amongst the two, the people that were there, and he didn't care. He met her anyway, right? And he didn't care about what anyone had to say. He met her in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of the brokenness, in the middle of the complicated area. Like he met her there. And that's how I feel, is that he met me in the middle of brokenness. He met me in the middle of all these complicated areas in my life. And he sees me as worthy, and he revealed his ministry to me so that I can go on and continue to do it myself. So I always feel like I'm the woman at the well.
Yes, that's so good. It's so, so good. I love Woman at the Well so much. So much so that, the Bible group study that I started at my own parish, we named it Woman at the Well because it was just like, I was so inspired. I mean, it's a long story how we got the name, but I eventually went and reread just the Woman at the Well for the first time, like, with just me and the Holy Spirit. And it was like, whoa, it was like life changing. Yeah. Cause it's just like, that's what he does is he'll meet us where we're at. She was just like going about her day, doing her errands, and he's waiting for her. And he just totally, exposes all the things that she needs and then gives her a mission. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
I know. That's how I feel. I feel like he just exposed me and then called me to a mission and met me in the middle of brokenness and in the middle of persecution and all of that. So I always feel like I am that woman at the well.
Yes, it's so good, Ashley. Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story and being so vulnerable. And I just cannot wait to see what the Holy Spirit does with you and everything in your future and your path. And definitely we'll be listening to his Promise podcast to journey with you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for your yes, honestly. Like, I know that sometimes it can be hard, to be obedient. So thank you for your yes. And just, just allowing the Spirit to just guide you and being obedient to that. So thank you for your ministry.
Thank you. All right. Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much for growing some good with us today. Visit us at togrowgood.com/podcast to find links to everything we mentioned in today's conversation. If you enjoyed today's conversation, would you please consider leaving us a review on iTunes or on whatever app you're listening from? Reviews help podcasts to show up higher in search results so that more people can find these incredible stories of the Lord at work. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider sharing it with a friend, a family member, or a coworker who might enjoy the conversation as well. Find us on Instagram at @togrowgood. See you next week.